Lacey and I met in college during our junior year and were instantly drawn to each other. She had thick blonde hair, green eyes, a beautiful face, and a slender, flexible body with long legs and medium-sized breasts. In a word, she was perfect, at least for me. But the main thing that made me fall head over heels in love was her personality. She was smart, cheerful, and funny. I could talk to her for hours about everything and everyone. We were best friends, and after 3 months of being together, Lacey gave herself to me in the back seat of my old Ford parked behind the city baseball stadium. At that moment, it was the brightest moment of my life. Everything was clumsy and awkward when our bodies finally connected. She cried, but not from pain, as she assured me, but from happiness. I'll never forget her words when I finally took her for the first time. "Oh, Billy, we did it." From that moment on, I had no doubt Lacey and I would be together forever, or as it turned out, for 10 years. My name is Bill White, but everyone calls me Billy. I was born and raised in a small town in Ohio. I'm exactly 511 inches tall and weigh 187 pounds. I'm considered quite handsome with my blue eyes and brown hair. By profession, I'm a contractor. I have my own small company with a permanent staff of 5 people. We primarily do interior remodeling for people who can afford it, and our work is considered excellent. Lacey teaches music at a local high school, and together we make a very good living. We have a beautiful home, and since we are both in our early 30s, we are planning to have children in the very near future. As I mentioned, the first 10 years of our marriage were wonderful. Our life was amazing, although I'm not going to exaggerate and say we did it twice a day or even every day, more like 3 times a week, but it was always loving and often passionate. We hugged every night. It was an unbreakable rule. And every morning, waking up next to Lacey, I was amazed at how beautiful she was and how lucky I was to have her as my wife. I can honestly say that although I would prefer to live with her every day, if I had to give my life for her, I would do so without hesitation. I guess I'd better make that last statement in the past tense because suddenly something hit me, something so unexpected and emotionally overwhelming that I still haven't fully recovered from it. As a contractor in Ohio, most of our work occurs during the spring, summer, and fall months. People just don't like it when the interior of their homes is destroyed when it's 23 VDGF outside and there's a foot of snow on the ground. For this reason, the vacations that Lacey and I took usually fell during the Christmas, New Year's, and spring break holidays. During the summer, when I was busy making money, Lacey would sometimes take a week off to visit her parents, go on a shopping trip with her 2 sisters, or take a summer lesson or 2 to keep her teaching skills up to date. Every winter, our favorite trip was somewhere warm. So in the winter of our collapse, we chose an all-inclusive spa hotel in Jamaica for 2 weeks in paradise for the 2 of us to reconnect in body and spirit. However, I soon realized how wrong this thought was. First, I must explain that before Lacey and I boarded the plane in Cincinnati, I not only had no idea, but I would have called anyone a liar and spat in their face if they dared to imply that there was anything wrong with our marriage. That's not true. We were the perfect couple, so madly in love with each other and deeply connected in every way that it was as if we were one person fused from 2 bodies. Our union was so strong that nothing on earth or in heaven could come between us. I guess I just forgot that there was also a hell, and although I didn't know it at the time, I was teetering on the edge, ready to fall into the molten abyss. My first inkling that something was wrong came when we checked in at Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport. The line was long, with many trying to trade the extreme cold for tropical warmth. As Lacey and I stood in line to go through the scanners, I noticed a man in the line next to us staring at Lacey. This was nothing unusual. My wife is a stunning woman, and men often give her slightly lustful looks. But here it looked different, as if he was trying to get her attention. I wanted to know more, so I pretended to look at my boarding pass while watching the guy out of the corner of my eye. His glances in her direction were, to put it mildly, furtive. But then I caught Lacey's quick glance at him and a slight wave of her hand, as if she were saying, "Not now." He smiled and nodded, and I almost threw up my breakfast. I was stunned. It was at that moment that I realized these two knew each other. How well, I didn't know, but this realization raised all sorts of warning flags. While we were passing through security, I carefully watched both of them, but there were no further attempts to establish contact from either side. I know I became very quiet, but for some reason Lacey didn't seem to notice. I guessed her mind was somewhere else. I hoped that this man, whoever he was, would not be on our plane, but as soon as we sat down and took our seats, I realized I was mistaken. He was sitting in the aisle about 15 rows in front of us. Another thing that struck me as odd was that Lacey decided to take an aisle seat in our row. This had never happened before. She always wanted to sit by the window, but not this time. I asked her what was wrong since I had pre-registered her for a window seat, giving myself the middle seat. But she just said that her breakfast didn't agree with her and she didn't want to bother anyone if she had to use the restroom. I asked the woman sitting on the aisle if she would mind switching to a window seat, and when I told her about my wife's stomach problems, she readily agreed, and the exchange was made. I don't usually have trouble sleeping on planes, and the long flight between Cincinnati and Miami provided me with that opportunity. But in my state of heightened anxiety on this flight, I couldn't fall asleep even though I tried to pretend. We put our things in the overhead locker, and Lacey put her purse under the seat in front of her. Once we were airborne, I took out my Reds baseball cap, pulled it over my forehead, and pretended to fall asleep. I left myself enough room to follow Lacey, and after 15 minutes, she looked down at me. As soon as she was sure that I was asleep, she got up and walked down the aisle to the toilets. I moved in my seat so that I could see the entire aisle, and noticed that as she passed by a place occupied, as I now assumed, by her acquaintance, she extended her hand as if to steady herself and briefly touched the guy's shoulder. More proof that there was something between them, and it wasn't just a coincidence. I noticed they weren't looking at each other, and Lacey headed further into the restroom. When she came out a few moments later, she looked straight at him and he stood up and walked towards her. When they met in the passage, instead of one of them moving to the side to allow the other to pass, they looked at each other and stopped for a moment. He put his hand on her waist, she touched his chest for a second, and they spoke to each other. They both smiled warmly, and as she headed back to her aisle seat, his hand slid down her butt, making Lacey smile again. That was all I needed to understand that these two had known each other for a while and were obviously close on some level. At the same time, it hit me like a ton of bricks that my wonderful marriage was in real danger and could very well end. I suddenly felt so sad that I had to turn away from Lacey as she sat down and fastened her seatbelt. How could she do this to me, to us? How long had this lasted? Who was this man? And how far had they come in their relationship? I spent the rest of the flight trying to make some sense of everything I saw and praying that when we boarded our flight to Montego Bay, he wouldn't be there. But somehow, I already knew he would be. To my chagrin, I was right. As soon as Lacey and I boarded the plane, I saw him sitting 5 rows behind us. He was reading a magazine and did not pay any attention to us when we took our seats. Lacey, who was apparently no longer suffering from stomach problems, took her usual seat by the window. The flight to Montego Bay was uneventful, and upon landing, we collected our luggage, rented a car, and headed to the hotel. While I was driving, Lacey was typing something on her phone. "Who are you writing to?" "Oh, just my mother and sister. I told them that we had arrived." "Yes, maybe so," I thought, "but I would really like to see for myself." Isn't it strange that when suspicions begin, they are like a snowball? Our room was beautiful, with a balcony overlooking the ocean and one of the pools. As we unpacked, I realized I had to make a statement to get my wife back, so I walked over to Lacey, hugged her, and kissed her neck. "Do you know how much I love you?" Lacey turned to face me and lightly pecked my lips. "I love you too, baby," she said. A strange light appeared in her eyes, as if she were not next to me. Goosebumps ran across my skin. "You know that I would never do anything bad to you, right, Lacey?" She shuddered slightly. "I know that, Billy, and I know that you would never harm me or our wonderful marriage," I told her. And she shuddered again, and I saw tears appear in her eyes. "Of course, Billy, you know I won't do that." But she couldn't look at me while she was talking. She just looked at the floor. And then I realized that most likely I had lost the battle. If she hadn't done it before, now I knew she would soon give herself to another man. I let her go and quickly walked to the bathroom, hoping I wouldn't lose her before I got there. I sat in the bathroom for a few minutes, coming to my senses and asking myself the same questions over and over again. How did it happen? What did I do to push her into the arms of another man? Why didn't I notice anything weeks or months ago? But most importantly, what can I do to stop her from completely destroying us? Or is it too late? I washed my face and left the bathroom. Lacey stood there with a strange expression on her face. "Oh my God, Billy, I just got my period and I didn't bring any tampons with me." "What?" I asked. "You just got your period, Lacey, but you only experienced it a week ago. How could it start again?" "I don't know, but sometimes this happens. Maybe it was the excitement of the holiday. I need to go to the store and buy tampons." And she left, closing the door behind her. My first thought was that maybe this was a good thing. This would slow down the romance between her and her boyfriend, whoever he is. My second thought was, wait a minute, this just can't be true. In all the years that we lived together, this had never happened to her. She was on pills and her periods were always regular, like clockwork. Then why would she make all this up? Unless she decided that her period would prevent me from insisting on that she could devote all her love and passion to her new man. This is how it should be. And if so, then she is not the woman I married. No one can be so treacherous and cruel. She must really hate me if she allows herself to let me plan and pay for this trip so she can cut me out of her life and give everything she has to a man I've never even met. I felt completely lost, like I was losing my mind. Who was this woman whom I loved with all my heart for over 10 years? Looking around the room, I saw that she had left her cell phone next to the TV. I turned it on, not knowing if she had changed the password, and found that there was no other mistake on her part. I went to her messages and read the most recent ones from someone named Mark Eisner. I pinpointed my finger at the beginning of the correspondence that began when we were still driving in the car to the hotel. Mark: "Hey babe, oh my God, you look amazing. I can't wait to have you as mine." Lacey: "You brat, you're the reason Billy almost caught us at the airport." Mark: "I couldn't help it, Lacey. I look at you and feel how soon you'll be in bed with me. I almost kissed you right on the plane when we were standing in the aisle." Lacey: "Billy was fast asleep, so he wouldn't have noticed, but it might have looked bad to others. I really like the way you gave my butt a little squeeze. A little preview of things to come, LOL. It's time to go. We're almost there." The conversation between them resumed once we were in our hotel room. Mark: "I'm in the lobby. Are you there yet?" Lacey: "In my room. Billy is in the bathroom. He's acting strange." Mark: "What's the difference? When are you going to give up on Billy Boy so I can have you all to myself?" Lacey: "I told you from the very first time we were together that I couldn't and wouldn't do this, Mark. Billy is a wonderful husband. He loves me, cares for me, and gives me a standard of living that you could never offer." Mark: "But I'm better than him in bed." Lacey: "Oh God, yeah. No one can do it like you, baby. You know, but no matter how good you are, believe me, you are the best, but I need more than just sex, and that's what Billy gives me. Billy and I are getting ready to have kids, so the next 2 weeks are just for you, baby. I told Billy I stopped taking the pill when we got home, but I actually stopped taking it almost 3 weeks ago. So now you have a chance to give me your child. If you can make me a baby in the next 2 weeks, we'll have it and Billy will raise it, thinking it's his." Mark: "You're so obscene, Lacey, but I love it. I'll make a baby in your sweet belly." Lacey: "God, you're making me wet. I can't wait to feel you inside me." Mark: "What about Billy Boy? How do you know he won't catch us in the next 2 weeks? Lacey: "Because he won't have sex with me, stupid boy. I will tell him that my period has started again, and oddly enough, it will continue the entire time that we are on vacation, LOL. Mark: "Are you sure he'll buy it?" Lacey. Of course. He loves me and knows that I would never lie to him. Besides, when we return home, I will compensate him for everything. Mark. Damn, he's so stupid. He's such a loser. Lacey. Stop calling him that or you'll lose me forever. Mark. We both know you won't let that happen. You need my sex too much. Lacey. That's true, but I still don't like it when you say things like that about Billy. He is a good guy. Mark. Okay, meet me in the lobby. Lacey. Give me 5 minutes. I stood in complete shock and started to put her phone back, but stopped. There is a possibility that I can find a way to use these text messages as evidence in a divorce. I wanted to replace her phone with mine, and then I thought, the hell with it. My phone contains all my personal information. She started this mess. Let her try to find a way out herself. So I kept both of our phones. I figured it wouldn't take long for her to realize her phone was missing, but by then I'd be long gone. I felt bile rising in my throat, causing me to vomit. I walked to the window and looked out at the beautiful Caribbean Sea. 8 hours ago, I was the happiest man on earth, preparing for 2 weeks of romance in the tropical sun with the love of my life, my wife, my soulmate, and now my world had collapsed. I have never felt so alone, shocked, and angry in my life. I wanted to hurt them both, destroy them for making a pathetic fool out of me. Luckily, the rational side of my brain gradually took over. Divorce was inevitable. There was no way I was going to end up with the cheating woman who was previously my loving wife. But I wanted more. I wanted revenge. Looking out the window, I accidentally looked down at the pool, and there they stood, hugging tightly, immersed in a passionate kiss. Mark lowered his hands to caress Lacey's backside. I almost threw up, but instead, I took a deep breath and grabbed my video camera, which I had bought specifically for this trip, but now used to record their actions. While Lacey was unpacking, she probably didn't even bother to look out the window of our room. Otherwise, she would have noticed that the pool was in sight. The camera had a decent zoom, so I was able to get some nice close-ups of them tongue-kissing. It made me sick to watch, but I used it against them later. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast, but my stomach was in cramps and my brain was blocked. Then it occurred to me, how is she going to spend time with her lover if I'm around? They must have a plan to keep me busy while they have fun together. As I thought about it, it occurred to me that it was actually simple. Lacey was going to spend 2 weeks with her lover Mark so he could have a baby, and I wanted revenge, so why not beat them to it? Instead of waiting and only then trying to destroy their plans, first I had to figure out how they planned to keep me busy while they had sex until they passed out. I was still filming the video when I saw them kiss one more time, and then Lacey quickly turned and walked away. She could return to our room at any minute, and I needed to get my emotions under control. So I went back to the bathroom and turned on the shower to try to relax. If she asks what's wrong, I'll just tell her that it helps me relax after a flight and that I wanted to get rid of that airplane smell. 5 minutes later, I heard the door to our room open and close. "I'm back," she shouted. "I brought water and tampons." "Great, I'll be out in a minute." Why did she bring us water? Bottled water is provided in all rooms at the resort, and then it suddenly dawned on me. She plans to drug me with something. Now my mind was feverishly figuring out how to deal with this. If I don't drink the water she bought me, she'll know I'm suspicious. If I drink it and it's poisoned, I will pass out, and she and her lover will go to his room. What should I do? I turned off the shower and dried myself slowly, wondering how to deal with this. Then Lacey knocked on the door. "Are you okay? You've been in there for quite a long time." Her voice was filled with worry. I couldn't help but wonder if she was worried about me or about being late for her big date. My anger began to rise again, but I tried my best to maintain my composure. When I opened the door and saw her standing by the bed drinking from a bottle of water, she handed me another bottle, and I noticed that it was already open. "With this climate change, we need to stay hydrated," she said. She looked me in the eye and quickly turned away. I took the bottle and pretended to take a long swig. As I turned and walked back to the bathroom quickly but quietly, I spat the water into the sink and emptied the bottle, grabbing one of the bottles of water from the bathroom counter. I refilled the empty bottle Lacey had given me. Returning to the room, I saw that she was busy unpacking and hanging clothes in the closet, so I was pretty sure that she did not see me spit out the water or refill the bottle. After leaving the bathroom, I continued to drink water. I started looking around the room and noticed that she had laid out a red dress. "Is this what you're going to wear to dinner? It seems like a waste of time if we can't have sex." "You know how much this dress excites me," I said. As I said this, I realized that she was dressing for him, not for me. "Well, since I brought it with me, I can put it on," she smiled. "Are you tired from all this traveling? You must be tired." Bingo, I thought. She actually poisoned my water. But how should I play this game? I needed more proof of their affair, so I pretended to be sleepy. I took another sip of water, then let my eyelids droop a little as if I was tired. In fact, I felt like I had just drunk several cans of Red Bull. My heart was pounding wildly in my chest, and it took all my self-control to pretend to be sleepy. "Now that you mention it, yeah, I'm a little tired. What time should we be ready for dinner?" I asked slightly lazily. "Seating won't begin for a couple of hours. Why don't you lie down and get some rest? I'll wake you up when it's time to get ready," she said. This with such sincerity that I almost believed it. I yawned. "Okay, honey, it won't hurt me to rest. Just don't let me sleep for long. I want to spend as much time with you as possible. I love you so much." I saw her flinch as if I had touched a nerve. "I love you too," she said with less conviction. I lay down on the bed and began to move very slowly as if I was falling asleep. Soon I was snoring softly and heard Lacey take out her phone to make a call. "Hey, it worked. He passed out. How long will this keep him asleep? So we have the whole night ahead of us. I can't wait until we have passionate sex," she giggled. And I almost choked, but was able to maintain the illusion that I was dreaming. "Meet me in an hour at the Sandpiper bar. I want to freshen up a little," she giggled again. "You're so bad. I can't wait. Love, bye." She hung up and started getting ready for her big night. I watched her through barely open eyes as she picked out her panties, a thong, of course, and a push-up bra. What a slut. Once again, my anger grew within me while I tried my best to act unconscious. She continued to get ready, then went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. I knew she would be there for a good 10 minutes, and as soon as I heard the shower door close, I quickly stood up and headed straight for her purse. I started looking for sleeping pills or whatever she put in the water bottle she gave me. I came across a bottle of pills that had no label on it. I opened it and found about a dozen small whitish capsules. This must be what she put in my water, so I carefully shook out about half a dozen pills and put the bottle back in her purse. I then grabbed a paper napkin, wrapped up the pills, and put them in the pocket of the shorts I was wearing. I quickly returned to the bed just as I heard her turn off the water in the shower. I made myself comfortable and continued my fake sleep while she finished getting ready for the date. It took her another 45 minutes to get ready, but as soon as she was out the door, I got up and got dressed as quickly as I could. While I was lying there, I had time to develop a plan. First, there needed to be more video evidence that they were together. Second, ruin their plans for the rest of the trip. I didn't know how to do it, but I knew that eventually both would end up in a world of pain. Third, go home a few days earlier than our trip was supposed to end and start the divorce proceedings. I wanted to attack Lacey before she could do anything to stop or slow me down, like emptying our bank accounts and canceling all our credit cards. No, I will do this, not her. After getting dressed, I grabbed the video camera I had used that day and ran out the door. This camera could perform well in low light, or so the advertisement said. I was going to find out. As I walked to the bar, the hotel wasn't that big and only had 2 bars, both ocean view, but the Sandpiper was larger and had a dance floor. I managed to find a strategically advantageous spot behind some low palm trees that gave me a full view of the bar, but at the same time far enough away that I could not be seen. The zoom lens on the camera gave me a very good picture. It wasn't too crowded, making it easy to spot my prey. She was wearing that damn red dress that I love so much. It made me burn with anger and hatred. He wrapped his arms around her, and it took all my self-control and willpower not to run up to them and beat him to death. No, I had to remind myself that I was here to get evidence, not to end up in jail. I started recording how they behaved in the Caribbean like two lovers. They laughed, touched each other, and kissed like lovers, like Lacey and I earlier. After about an hour, the DJ started playing some music and they started dancing. After watching them on the dance floor for another hour, I couldn't take it anymore and was about to go back to my room alone. Then I noticed that they were leaving the dance floor quite quickly. I carefully followed them, trying to keep my distance so as not to be noticed. As I followed them, they stopped from time to time to kiss and caress each other, and I recorded their actions. They soon reached his room, located at the back of the hotel. It was smaller than ours and was located on the first floor, from where there was no view of the ocean. This guy must be on a budget, I thought. They entered his room, and I quickly moved closer to see if I could look inside. Luckily, the curtains weren't completely closed, and the window was slightly open, so I could hear their conversation and was able to record everything that was said. This guy probably likes to see who he's having sex with because he left the light on. They started kissing and undressing each other while I videotaped every moment of their connection. Once they were both completely naked, I noticed that this guy was well endowed, but that was no reason for her to cheat on me or let this asshole impregnate her and force me to raise a little bastard as my own child. I continued to stay awake outside his room and recorded their lovemaking for what seemed like an eternity. This guy was not only well endowed, but also seemed to have considerable stamina. It was getting close to midnight, and I thought she would soon leave him to be with me. But then I heard their conversation. "Are you sure these pills are safe? I don't want them to die from an overdose or a seizure," she said with some concern in her voice. How touching. "Hey, don't worry about it, baby. He'll sleep for at least another 6 hours. He may wake up with a slight headache, but nothing more. You only used 1 tablet, right?" "Yes, only 1. "And what would 2 do? I don't want to overdose him." They laughed. No, don't worry. If you give him 2, he'll be unconscious for 12 hours or more. No, just keep giving him 1 before bed, and we can spend every night together. I want you to be pregnant by the time we leave here. Here's an additional key card for my room. If you can get away from him during the day, call me and we can meet here." Then they both laughed, and it filled me with such rage that I vomited. I had heard and seen enough for one evening, so I quietly left and returned to my room. Now I had to figure out how to destroy them both and make them feel the pain they caused me. It was clear that she would try to spend every night with him, so the first thing I was going to do was change those plans. Returning to my room, I reviewed what I had written down. As hard as it was, I began to formulate a plan that I hoped would completely ruin their fun. First, I had to find a way to separate them so that I could follow Mark and do what I intended. My idea was to leave him alone, maybe even drug him like Lacey did to me, and then beat the crap out of him while he was unconscious. He wouldn't be able to identify the attacker, and then I could leave completely free. Now the question was, how can I make sure that these two were not together? Then it occurred to me that I could treat Lacey to a spa day. The hotel had a spa that offered massages, facials, and even cosmetics. It was easy enough to buy a package and then give it to her as a surprise to show her how much I loved her. If she tries to refuse, I will say that it is non-refundable, thereby placing a huge amount of guilt on her to force her to still go like she did to me in the past. There is no way she can refuse my gift, and it will keep her busy for at least a couple of hours. It will be enough for me to give my lover the spanking he so generously deserves. I changed back into shorts and went to bed. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning when Lacey finally returned to the room. She quietly changed her clothes, climbed into bed, and snuggled up to me. I wanted to push her away, but I remained motionless, as if I was sleeping, and waited for the right moment to wake up. Shortly after 7 o'clock in the morning, I began to stir and pretended to slowly wake up. Lacey was fast asleep, so I got up and took a quick shower, then went out to find the spa. I was hoping they would open early so I could buy her a package that would keep her busy long enough for me to take care of some business. I also wanted to check and see if I could get home the next day, late in the morning or early in the afternoon. It took me very little time to find the spa, and I saw that it was open, so I went to see what they offered as packages. There was a nice young woman behind the counter who helped me choose a package. I was more interested in how long the therapy would take rather than what it was intended to do. Having chosen one that took about 3 hours, I asked what time it could be booked for. The woman checked her computer and said that the first available slot she had was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I thought for a while, then decided to buy it and surprise my wife. That done, I headed out to explore the area, deciding that Lacey needed some sleep, as her time with her lover the previous night had probably left her tired. Around 9 o'clock in the morning, I returned to the room and found her still fast asleep, so I rummaged through her purse and found her phone. I checked her text messages and read one from him that he sent in the last hour. "Mark, you were great last night. Any chance you could escape Billy for some afternoon fun?" My anger returned, but I held it in. I was doing well, but now I knew the end was near. Lacey started to stir, so I put her phone back, walked over and gently kissed her forehead. "Good morning, sleepyhead. I'm sorry about yesterday for falling asleep so suddenly and ruining our dinner plans, but I have a surprise for you." She smiled and yawned. "What kind of surprise?" "I booked you a spa day as an apology for last night and to show you how much I love you." Even in my half-asleep state, I noticed how she shuddered slightly and uncertainty appeared in her eyes. At that moment, I realized that she doubted whether she really loved me. I looked into her eyes. "Everything is fine, or don't you like my gift?" "Oh no, I like it. I just wish you had asked me first," she smiled faintly. "If I had done that, it wouldn't have come as much of a surprise to you. Look, this doesn't mean you need to run to the spa right now. I've made a reservation for 2 o'clock today so we can spend some time together." "Fine," she nodded. "Thank you, you are very caring." "Well, why don't you clean yourself up and we'll go have breakfast?" I got out of bed. When she sat up, "Okay," she said, also getting up, grabbing her purse and going to the bathroom. I already knew what she was up to, but I didn't want to make her suspicious, so I went to the window and saw an interesting sight. Mark was standing by the pool, chatting with 2 young women and looking at his phone. Then I saw him typing, and suddenly he put the phone away. She must have told him about my unexpected gift, but he didn't seem too upset. His attention soon returned to the 2 women, who seemed to be laughing happily at something one of them had said. Then he waved his hand, and all 3 disappeared from my sight. Although it occurred to me that maybe Mark was making other plans in case Lacey couldn't provide a little afternoon entertainment, this could be very helpful. About an hour later, Lacey and I were standing at the buffet filling plates. Well, I was the one who filled mine, and she only took fruit and coffee. "Are you hungry, baby? Is it because of your period?" I asked. "Yes, that must be so. I really don't feel like eating." She got distracted. I couldn't help but wonder what Mark wrote in his message because it seemed to bother her. Well, it didn't really matter since my plan seemed to be having the desired effect on them, or at least on her. After breakfast, we decided to walk along the beach and look at the ocean. I took my camera with me and photographed the beach, palm trees, and Lacey. She smiled politely, and I said how beautiful she was and what a wonderful mother she would be. Then she shuddered, and an expression of uncertainty and guilt appeared on her face. "What happened, baby? Are you okay?" I knew that a feeling of guilt was beginning to gnaw at her. "No, I'm fine, just a little tired. Would you mind if I went back to my room to take a nap before my spa visit?" "Sure, no problem. I know it's not much fun to be on vacation and suddenly get your period. Go lie down and we'll see you in your room after your spa treatment. I'm sure it will do you good." She turned and walked back to the hotel without even kissing me goodbye. Well, soon I'll give her a kick in the ass. Now all I had to do was find Mark and make him pay. Continuing to walk along the beach, lost in my thoughts, I saw 2 couples walking towards me. The women I recognized were the 2 who had spoken to him this morning. Now they were with 2 very large guys, who looked like they could be the Bengals quarterback. As I got closer, I began to hear their conversation. "Come on, baby, don't be like that. You know that Dave and I wanted to go deep-sea fishing and they had 2 spots available. We'll be back before dinner," one of the guys said. "Yeah, it's always like that. You guys go off and do whatever you want while we're hanging out here at the hotel," one of the women complained. "Baby, there's a lot you could do here. Go to town for shopping, relax by the pool or on the beach. Heck, you could even use the gym they have here," the other guy suggested. "Are you saying that I'm fat? Is that what you mean?" the woman snapped. "No, baby, not what I meant. It's just that you could do a lot of things here, that's all." He tried to backpedal. As they passed me on their way back to the hotel, I had already realized that he had lost the battle, but still continued to beg for his desire, but to no avail. After wandering around the beach for a while, I decided to go back and see if I could find out how her lover was doing. I was afraid Lacey missed her spa visit and would be with him, but if that was the case, maybe I could get some more videos of the 2 of them together. I wandered around the hotel for over an hour and then ended up in front of Mark's room. I heard voices coming from inside, but not Lacey's voice. I carefully prepared my camera and walked closer to the window. It was very risky because it was daytime and more people could pass by and see me. I decided that the best thing to do would be to mount the camera on an outside windowsill pointing into the room and just let it record on its own. Once the camera was set up, I walked down the path and found a spot where I could watch his door and see who was coming out. Time seemed to drag on forever, but my patience was rewarded. The 2 women I saw with Mark this morning at the pool, and then again at the beach with those 2 guys, came out of his room. They were all smiling and giggling as if they had some secret in common, and it was hilarious. As soon as they left, I went and grabbed my camera and headed back to my room. Lacey wouldn't be back from her spa treatment for almost another hour, so I had time to review what I'd written down. Returning to my room, I pulled out my laptop and downloaded all the videos I had recorded since our arrival onto it. It was mostly Lacey and the idiot, but then I watched what I just recorded when those 2 girls were in his room. It looks like they found something to do while their friends were deep-sea fishing. Mark talked them into having a threesome with him. It was like watching some second-rate adult movie. He had sex with one while the other watched and played with herself, and then the girls switched places and so on in a circle. At that moment, another idea struck me. What if I could time it right to return home while Lacey would be here trying to figure out what the hell happened? I knew that tonight she would probably try to drug me again so that I would repeat the performance and let her think I was knocked out. Then, if I'm lucky, she'll also meet Mark at the bar, dance and drink before returning to his room. If I managed to slip one pill into their drinks towards the end of the night at the bar, they'd be passed out by the time they got to his room. The timing has to be perfect, but in life, rarely does anything that is planned go perfectly. The second part of this plan was to make a DVR copy of Mark's latest conquests. I have to say that I was a little jealous of this guy who managed to convince 2 very attractive women to have a good time in his room. I had several DVR discs and made 2 copies of his day's exploits. So now I just had to figure out which rooms to leave them in. I also made a copy of everything I had recorded up to this point on another DVR so I could have some insurance. I went down to the front desk and was able to send the disc to my brother Frank's home with a note asking him not to play the disc or let anyone know that I had sent it to him. This was in case my plan failed, or Lacey and Mark also found out what I was up to and wanted to hurt me. If they kill me, then at least the disc that I sent to my brother will show the authorities who is behind it. After checking the time, I saw that Lacey was about to finish her treatment at the spa, so I decided to take a quick walk around the hotel to see what rooms the 2 women and their boyfriends were staying in. I'm sure their boyfriends would be more than a little interested in what their girlfriends were up to while they were deep-sea fishing. Soon I saw the 2 women I was looking for rise from the pool with towels in their hands. When I followed them, I learned that they were returning to their rooms, and of course, I watched them enter different rooms next to each other. This solved one part of my plan. Now, if everything goes as planned, and Lacey and Mark follow the same pattern as last night, by tomorrow morning, I could completely ruin the rest of the trip. I went back to my room to call the airline to find out when the earliest flight was the next morning. The best they had was a 10 a.m. flight, which was later than I had hoped, but I booked it anyway. Then I returned to the front desk to advise that my wife and I would have to leave the next morning due to an emergency at home and that we would be checking out of the hotel at 8 in the morning. They sympathized with me and wished me all the best, and I thanked them and headed back to the room. Now I was fully committed to my plan, come hell or high water. If things don't go as I hoped, I'll hop on a plane in the morning and get home before Lacey. At least I can ruin everything for her before she gets home. But if by some miracle everything goes according to my plan, she'll be stuck here for days, maybe even weeks before she gets home, which will give me time to really ruin her life. The plan was quite simple. First, let Lacey think she drugged me, and I'll pretend to fall asleep so she and Mark can spend the evening together. Second, I'll go back to the bar, watching and waiting for the right moment to spike their drinks with whatever Lacey tried to use on me. If I timed it right, they would pass out right before they got to his room or as soon as they got there. Again, the timing had to be perfect. Third, once they're in the room, I'll go and take Lacey back to our room and then come back and give Mark a good cleaning. I'll take his wallet, his cash, his passport, his credit cards, his clothes, everything he brought with him. Next, I'll find the rooms of the two women Mark had a threesome with previously and slide the DVR drives under their doors in the hopes that one of the boyfriends will see them first and watch them. I'm sure they won't be too happy to see what their girlfriends did while they were away. Mark's license plate is clearly captured on video, so I'm sure they won't have any problems finding him. Fifth, I will do to Lacey the same thing I did to Mark. I'll take everything she brought with her on the road and leave her nothing except the clothes she was wearing, her purse, and her empty wallet. I'll leave a little note in her empty wallet so she knows who's to blame. So now everything was ready, and all I could do from now on was wait for the players to make their moves. Lacey returned to the room at 5:30 in the evening looking more relaxed and radiant than ever before. It hurt me to think about how she ended her marriage and how I would never be with this beautiful woman again. Billy, thank you very much for the spa day. Everything was amazing. I feel like a completely new woman. She actually glowed. I'm so glad you liked it. When I first told you about it, you didn't seem all that excited, but now I'm glad you liked it. I just wanted to show you how much I love you. I saw her wince again, but I also saw her eyes filled with tears. Thanks again. I liked it, and I love you. This time she said it with much more conviction and feeling. Anytime, baby. We have dinner booked for 7 in the evening. How about we get some rest and then get ready for dinner? She nodded and went to the bathroom, taking her purse with her. A few minutes later, she came out with 2 bottles of water and handed one to me. Here, drink this. I want to go dancing tonight, so you better start hydrating now. She winked at me. Okay. Just let me go to the bathroom first, I chuckled. Once inside, I went through the same procedure as before, emptying the bottle, then refilling it with water from one of the ones on the counter. I flushed the toilet to make it sound like I was busy and went back to the bedroom. I continued to drink water, and after 15 minutes, I began to do my sleepy act. Soon I was snoring, pretending to be asleep, and watching Lacey get ready for her last date with Mark, although she didn't know it yet. She went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. I quickly got out of bed and grabbed her phone to see what her lover was texting her, Lacey. I can't leave this afternoon. Billy bought me a spa package. I couldn't say no. Mark: no problem, baby. I have other plans right now. Are we still on for tonight? Lacey: oh yeah, I can't wait to be in your arms and have you screaming my name. After reading this crap, my rage was no longer as strong because I knew the end was near. Now all I had to do was follow them to a bar, watch them dance for a few hours, and then spike their drinks easily. Well, maybe not so much. I rummaged through her purse and found Mark's room key card, put it in my pocket, and put everything back in its place. Lacey took a little more time to prepare herself, and then she did something completely unexpected. She sat down on the bed next to me and gently touched my cheek. "Billy, after this week I'll be all yours, I swear. I just needed to get this out of my head before we had kids. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, and I know you wouldn't understand, but I have to do it. The next few days are for me. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, but I know that if you find out, you'll leave me, and I need you now more than you know. I love you so much, but I really need to do this," she whispered. At first I thought that she might have realized that I was awake, but then I realized that she was trying to relieve her own guilt. But it was too late for that. Soon she was fully dressed and walked out the door. As soon as the door closed, I jumped out of bed, got dressed, and wasn't too far behind her. They again found themselves in the same bar as yesterday. There were more people there than last night, and I even saw 2 women and their boyfriends from the beach. If my plan works, they won't be together by the next morning. I found myself in the same place I had been the previous evening, so I made myself as comfortable as possible and, using my trusty camera, began recording the events of the evening. The evening went as I expected, and soon both were sitting at the table talking and laughing. It was already late, and I realized that the time was approaching when I would need to drug them with sleeping pills. I quickly walked towards the bar, making sure none of them could see me. Once there, I found an empty seat next to where the waitresses placed drink orders. Once seated, I ordered a beer, keeping my eyes on them to make sure they didn't notice me. As I watched them, I noticed a waitress stop at their table to take their order. After receiving it, she immediately returned to the bar and told the bartender what she wanted. I was lucky that this was her only order. I listened to what she said to the bartender, and then when he walked away to fill the order, I called another bartender over and ordered the exact same drinks. The first bartender placed the drinks on the waitress's tray. She was distracted while talking to another waitress. My drinks were brought. I paid for them, then I took one drink and, blocking it from prying eyes, opened one of the capsules and plopped it into the drink, stirring the powder so that it dissolved better. It sizzled slightly but mixed perfectly with the drink. I did the same with the other one and was ready to trade. With a glass in each hand, I began to push past the waitress, keeping myself between her and the bar so I could make the exchange. I was quick, and fortunately the bar was crowded enough that no one noticed my actions. I moved away from the waitress and turned around, giving her the opportunity to take the drinks to the happy couple. I just as quickly walked away from the bar and returned to my place in the distance to watch and wait. The waitress brought them their drinks and I watched, hoping I had timed it right. It was just after 1 o'clock in the morning, so if the medicine worked as I hoped, they would be unconscious until 11 o'clock in the morning or so. It would be great if they got to Mark's room before they passed out. They sat sipping their drinks, and I was starting to get nervous. What if they don't finish their drinks? Will they have enough to create the desired effect? Then Mark leaned over and said something to Lacey. She smiled, and they both quickly drank what was left and left the bar. God bless. I moved quickly to keep up with them as they seemed to be in a hurry to get back to the room. This time, as I followed, I noticed that Lacey began to stumble and seemed to be having trouble maintaining her balance. Mark took her hand, threw it over his neck, and supported her with his arm around her waist. By the time they reached his room, Mark too began to sway slightly. My timing of their drinks was perfect, so now all I had to do was wait for the full effect. By the time they reached his door, she could barely stand, and he was stumbling more and more as he walked. He fumbled for the keycard and after several unsuccessful attempts was able to open the door and stagger inside. The door closed, so I waited a few minutes, then pulled out the keycard I took from Lacey's purse and opened the door. As I entered the room, I heard Mark begin, "What's wrong with you, baby?" "You didn't drink that much." He slurred his words, so I knew that he would be knocked out very soon. Upon entering the room, I saw Lacey lying face down on the bed, hibernating. Mark shook her, trying to wake her. Come on, baby, it's time to make a baby. He looked back and saw me coming in. Hey, who the hell are you? He started to straighten up and almost fell. Just her husband, the idiot. Now be a good boy and pass out so I can get her out of here. As if on cue, he slowly collapsed to the floor and didn't move anymore. Moving closer to the bed, I found his phone lying on the floor next to him. When I picked it up, I wanted to see what he had on it in the form of text messages and photos. Soon I was scrolling through hundreds of photos, most of them innocent enough, but then I got into the more explicit ones. He had a folder with dozens of images of women in various stages of undress, some performing acts such as playing with themselves. I didn't recognize most of the women, but I did find a few photos of Lacey, as well as some of the same acts. As I continued to look through the photos, I began to recognize some of the women as teachers from the same school Lacey taught at, as well as the wives of several male teachers. Well, this is interesting. It seems Mark is a serial cheater when it comes to other people's wives. Everything was going to end very ugly. I looked through his contact list to see who was there and decided that these photos, except for my soon-to-be ex-wife, should be shared with everyone on his list. It took me a few minutes to tag and send all these photos to all these people, some of whom were the husbands of the wives he was photographing. When he returns home, a pleasant surprise awaits him. I sent photos and videos of Lacey to her phone, and then from her phone to mine. Those that I later used for my own purposes, you could say blackmail. After turning off his phone, I started gathering all his belongings, clothes, toiletries, and all the other items he had brought for this trip and just casually stuffed them into his suitcase. I also searched his pockets and took all his cash, wallet, credit cards, driver's license, and passport. I knew that without a passport, it would be very difficult for him to leave the island. After finishing filling his suitcase, I turned to Lacey. She was still lying face down on the bed, one leg dangling. I very carefully turned her onto her back, then picked her up and carried her to our room. Once there, I placed her on her bed and went back to the room to get all of his things, keeping his phone, wallet, and cash, as I felt like I should get some compensation. After going through his room, I wanted to make sure he had nothing to take with him. I even took his shoes off, and on the way back, found a hotel dumpster, threw his suitcase and shoes in there, and covered them with some garbage so they wouldn't be discovered. Returning to my room, I began packing my suitcase along with Lacey's suitcase as I treated her things with the same care as I did Mark's. I was going to leave her here with nothing but the clothes she was wearing, her purse, and her empty wallet, which only contained the note I left behind. As I finished packing, I noticed that it was already past 4 o'clock in the morning and I needed to be at the airport by 9 o'clock. Since Lacey finished her drink around 2 o'clock in the morning, she would be unconscious until at least noon. Mark, I suspected, would come around at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I would be long gone before either of them woke up. There was one more thing I needed to do. Leaving the room, I grabbed the 2 DVR discs I had recorded earlier and headed towards the rooms where the 2 women and their boyfriends were staying. Very quietly and quickly, I slipped a disc under each door and returned to my room. There I looked at Lacey sleeping peacefully on the bed and was filled with a feeling of great loss and sadness. I wanted so much to have children with her, but she had other plans, and I could not forgive her. I walked around the room to make sure I had everything packed, then grabbed Lacey's suitcase and walked back to the same dumpster where I had thrown Mark's suitcase and added her suitcase. Returning to the room, I searched Lacey's purse to make sure it was empty, and there was no money, no credit cards, no passport. I wanted to make sure that it would be as difficult for her to return home as it was for Mark. Sitting on one of the 2 chairs in the room, I was exhausted, but then thought about what my next move would be when I got home. First, empty our bank and debit accounts, and then cancel all our credit cards. Then I will pack up everything I have and move it out of our house. I was sure I would need to find a storage unit to put everything in, but I didn't care. I just wanted to leave, get out of our house, and out of this sham marriage. Before I knew it, I fell asleep, and when I woke up, it was already almost 7 o'clock in the morning. Pushing myself away from the chair I was sleeping in, I walked over to the bed, took one last sad look at Lacey, then carefully picked her up and carried her out of the room. I went down to the pool and left Lacey on one of the lounge chairs. Since I was checking out, I didn't want her to be in the room when they got there to clean it and prepare it for the next guests. Returning to my room, I grabbed my suitcases, and before leaving, I looked around one last time to make sure I had everything. I still had Mark's phone, but then I had an idea. Back at the pool, I grabbed Lacey's phone and started sending all these photos and videos to everyone on her contact list, with a few exceptions. She had several nieces and nephews who were too young to see such things, but I was sure her mother, father, sisters, and colleagues would find them interesting. I went to the front desk and asked for a piece of tape, after which I took the battery out of her phone, put a very small piece of tape on the contacts, and put the battery back. It will look like her battery is dead. I also made sure she didn't have a phone charging cord. Without money, it would take her some time to get the phone to work. Just after 8 o'clock in the morning, I heard screams and shouts. It was the voice of one of the two boyfriends of the women I saw with Mark yesterday. Apparently, the soon-to-be ex-boyfriends watched the video I slipped under their door. "You are a piece of trash! You can tell your family that the wedding is canceled, and I don't want to see you anymore. You'll find your way home yourself," one guy shouted to his girlfriend. The other guy just had a stone-cold expression on his face while his girlfriend pleaded with him. "Baby, please don't leave me. I said I'm very sorry. It was truly a stupid mistake, and besides, you paid him back in full." "You are a traitor. Go back to your new boyfriend. He may have more to offer, but I don't think it'll work as well now," he told her so coldly that I shuddered in fear. I wonder what they did to poor Mark. Well, I guess I'll never know. The next sound I heard was the ambulance siren stopping in front of the building. The one I took to be the manager came out of his office and quickly led the orderlies along the path to Mark's room. I really hoped he was okay. As people began to gather around to see what all the fuss was about, I quietly took a taxi and went to the airport. I turned on my phone and noticed a voicemail. I turned on voicemail and listened to a message from my brother Frank. "Billy, what the hell is going on there? I received a ton of photos and some very detailed videos of Lacey. I mean, I know she's hot, but what's the big deal? Call me when you get this message." Arriving at the airport and waiting to board the plane, I called him back and explained the whole situation, how Lacey slept with Mark while we were on vacation, and how she was trying to get pregnant with him. My brother was shocked, and at first thought I was joking, but then I told him to look at the video more carefully. He said he was very sorry about what happened, and that if I needed anything, I could call him. I thanked him, hung up, and soon found myself on my way back home alone. When I turned on Mark's phone upon landing, I found a dozen voicemails and over 30 messages threatening to harm him. I guess the photos and videos I sent out weren't very popular. After receiving my suitcases, I picked up my car from the long-term parking lot and drove home. Along the way, I began to plan what to do next. Divorce was an option, but I knew that would mean she would get half of everything, and that just didn't suit me. She cheats, and yet remains okay with the divorce. It was simply unfair. As I drove, another plan began to form in my head, and I began to make a mental list of what I needed and how to do it. She had ruined our marriage, so I was going to make her life a living hell. When I got home, I called my brother and asked if he could help me move my things out of the house in the next few days. I wanted to do this before Lacey returned to an empty house. Finally, I turned on my phone and found over 20 voicemails and over a dozen messages. Many of them were from Lacey's sister, asking me what was going on and why Lacey wasn't answering her calls. Some of them were from other members of Lacey's family, mostly asking the same questions. I was somewhat relieved that there were no voicemails or text messages from Lacey herself. This meant she couldn't turn on her phone and probably didn't realize what had happened yet. I smiled at the thought that when she finally turned it on, her phone she would see all the texts and voicemails asking her about those photos and videos she sent from her phone. She was in for a very rude surprise. My first order was to cancel all of our credit cards and transfer all of our money from our joint bank account to my personal one. I then started collecting all my clothes as well as other personal items that I wanted to keep. All the gifts Lacey gave me over the years went straight into the trash unless they were worth something. Then I either sold them online or took them to a pawn shop. The home phone was switched off as soon as I arrived home, so anyone trying to contact me would have to call my cell phone. It was around 11 p.m. when I finally looked at my cell phone and saw several texts and voicemails from Lacey. She seemed to be able to get her phone working again. The first few messages were, "Where are you? Why did you leave and leave me here? Are you okay? I think I was robbed." Then the messages changed tone as she realized what had happened, and I am sure she received multiple text messages and voicemails about the photos that had been sent from her phone to everyone in her contacts list. Why? Why did you do this to me? Couldn't we talk first? I simply ignored the rest of her messages, figuring it would only upset her more. The next day was eventful. I had no idea when Lacey would be able to come home, so I had to act quickly. First, I purchased boxes to pack the remaining items and rented a warehouse large enough to hold it all. Then I went to the bank and made sure that there was very little money left in our joint account. I transferred the rest into my business account, which I was going to close, take the money, and run. But there was something else I needed to do before I could leave for good. The house we lived in was a very small starter home. We decided to start small, and when our family grew, buy a bigger house. There were simply 2 bedrooms with a small bathroom and a small kitchen, nothing fancy. And with my business doing home improvement and some renovation work, we had high hopes of turning this house into something special. Well, now I had other plans for that. And I was running around the city gathering what I would need to make Lacey's visit one she would never forget. Since I started renovating, I knew a thing or two about construction, load-bearing walls, and so on. Armed with this knowledge, I was going to make some extreme changes to our home, just in a non-traditional way. Later that morning, my brother Frank showed up with his pickup truck, and after some discussion about my situation, we started loading his truck with all my stuff. It took over 5 hours and 3 trips to the warehouse, but by the end of the day, I had officially moved out. I didn't tell Frank about my plans for the house or the surprise that was in store for Lacey. I knew he would try to dissuade me, so I never told him about it. He asked what my plans were for the near future. "Just leave town and leave this terrible marriage behind. I'm not going to file for divorce, but when she returns, I won't be here. She may get the house, but that's all she'll get from me." Frank just shook his head. "You know this won't work. She'll just hire a lawyer and track you down. Let's just get it over with and divorce this cheater. If you try to escape, you'll only make things worse when she catches up with you. Look, I know you're angry and hurt, but don't let your emotions make your decisions for you. Take heart, find a lawyer, and give her half. No, this bitch cheated on me and tried to have a baby with this idiot, planning to pass him off as mine. She deserves nothing, and this is exactly what she will get. You see, I'm not going to divorce her. Oh no. I'll just leave her with no money in the bank and all her dirty laundry exposed for everyone to see." Frank knew it was useless to persuade me. I tend to be stubborn, and when I get that way, there's little that can change my mind. He left, but not before telling me to think things over and not do anything rash. I've been thinking about everything since the moment I saw her kiss her lover. Now it's time to put my plan into action. That same evening, I started working on the house and worked until the early morning. I still didn't know when Lacey would be back, so I had to act quickly. The only thing that worked in my favor was the snow. Another major storm appeared to be brewing, forcing several major airports to close. Round-trip flights would be canceled, which would give me more time to put the finishing touches on my remodeling project. Another good thing about this storm was the extra 8 to 12 inches of snow it brought. We still had about a foot of it on the ground and roofs, which helped make my plan easier. Since I came back for 2 days, I rarely answered calls as I saw that most of the calls were from Lacey. In the end, I decided to answer her call, but the reason was so that I could get some information from her, nothing more. "Oh, baby, please, please listen. It was a mistake, just a huge, stupid mistake on my part. I never wanted it to go this far. I will do whatever it takes, but please forgive me." I heard her crying, but it didn't affect me. I didn't want anything to do with her anymore, but at the moment I needed to stay calm, give her at least a little hope, and then cut it off at the right moment. "Lacey, you hurt me more than anyone. I don't know if I can forgive you or trust you ever again. I just want to know why. Why did you do this to me? To us? Didn't you love me? Wasn't I enough for you?" I spoke calmly, but with a tinge of sadness in my voice. What I really wanted to do was scream into the phone that she was just a bitch that I never wanted to see again. I should have let her think that we had a chance to get back together. "Baby, please let me explain. None of it meant anything, and he didn't mean anything. You mean everything to me. You are my life, the meaning of my life. Please, oh God, please forgive me." She burst into tears. I waited a few minutes, then spoke. "Lacey, I just don't know. I loved you, but you broke my heart. I don't think we can fix everything." "No, baby, we will fix everything, and we will have an even stronger love, a stronger connection between us if only we can survive this. Please, baby, can you at least wait until I get home so we can talk?" I heard the desperation in her voice. "I don't know. When are you coming back?" "Well, there is one problem. I have neither a passport nor a plane ticket now. My sister is transferring some money to me since all my credit cards have been stolen. Oh, that reminds me. Please call these credit card companies and ask them to block my cards immediately." It's amazing how she went from asking me to take her back to ordering me to cancel her credit cards. What a bitch. "Okay, I'll do it right now. So you have no idea when you'll be back home?" "I think in a few days. I talked to the American consulate here and they will issue me a new passport. Call me when you leave." "Fine, I will do so. Billy?" "Yes?" "I love you. See you when you get home." I hung up. This means that she will return only in a few days. Perfect, I thought. This will give me enough time to make sure my home improvements are done and that I can do a few things to help me start a new life without her. The next day, Frank called to see how I was doing and to invite me to dinner. I agreed since I had not eaten home-cooked food for over a week. I was living on pizza and Chinese food. When I finished talking to Frank, I assured him that I wasn't going to do anything rash. Then Lacey called. "Hey baby, I just received news that in a couple of days I will be issued a new passport. Now all I need is a plane ticket home. I can be with you in a few days, and if I catch an early flight, I will be home later in the evening. Will you meet me at the airport? I really want us to talk as soon as possible." "This is not a good idea, Lacey. You should ask your sister to pick you up and take you home." I just let her on. By the time she gets home, I'll be at least 100 miles away. "Okay, baby, I love you, and I know that if you give me a chance, we can get through this." "Okay, Lacey, yes, of course, we'll talk and then we'll see. No promises." I lied, just like she once told me. I now had a good idea of when she would be home, which gave me plenty of time to do some more stuff to cover my tracks once I left town. First, I sold my truck, which I use for work, and bought another one, used and in good condition, but registered in a friend's name. Secondly, I had to tell the guys who worked for me that I was closing the business due to my upcoming divorce. I was sorry to leave so quickly, but I couldn't leave without telling them what happened and why. Then I called an old friend from college who now lives in Colorado. When we graduated from college, he said I should come and go into business with him. He said that with all the houses in winter and apartments in summer, we would have work throughout the year. He was happy to hear from me, but surprised by what happened between me and Lacey, since he knew her when we were dating and always thought we were perfect for each other. I asked if he was satisfied with college graduates or if he actually needed a good assistant. He said that now that marijuana laws had changed, his workload had tripled in the last year, and he would be more than happy for me to come and work for him. I asked if it could be unofficial because I wanted Lacey not to find out where I went and not to receive any money from me. Everything was arranged, and all I had to do was leave. Lacey called me several times a day to tell me she loved me and asked me to forgive her. She also gave me daily information about when she would be home and that when she returned, I would be the only one for her entire life. The day before she came home, I loaded up my new truck and emptied the house of all my stuff. Everything that was left either belonged to Lacey or was crap I didn't care about. I left very early in the morning because I wanted to leave the city without anyone noticing. I told my neighbor across the street to record Lacey's return home as a favor. I told him I would call to let him know when she was coming, as I had a surprise for her. He had no idea what had happened or that she and I were having marital problems, and happily agreed, saying that he would expect my call. The next day, everything was ready when I left the city and headed south to my new life without Lacey. It would take me at least 2 days to get to my friend's house, and by then Lacey would already be home. Along the way, I felt less angry and more at peace than I had the previous week. Ever since I saw Lacey and Mark poolside together, I felt like my life had been flushed down the toilet, and now I started to pull myself out of that cesspool of despair. Lacey called around noon and said she would be home tomorrow around 4 p.m. She asked again if I would pick her up at the airport, but I told her I had some things to do and would be back home after her. She can just come in when she gets there. I then called my neighbor and told him to be ready with a video camera to capture the surprise I had in store for my wife. The next day, I was in Colorado and only an hour away from my friend's house when Lacey called. The house just collapsed, folding in on itself. It must be because of the snow. I had barely inserted the key into the lock and turned it when I suddenly heard a loud crash and the roof fell in. "Oh God, our house is gone," she cried. "Well, Lacey, don't worry. I'm sure your parents are still waiting for you in their room. As for me, I've already taken other measures," I said cheerfully. "What are you talking about? Our house is gone. How can you be so happy now?" She was starting to get angry. "Fine, my renovation went just as I planned. I arranged it so that the house collapsed in on itself when you unlocked the door. I set up temporary bracing in the basement and then used a chainsaw to cut off all the nails in the floor. The lock on the front door was connected to a switch that turned on a winch that I bought very cheaply at a pawn shop. Then, using a pulley and some ropes attached to temporary supports, as soon as you turned the key, the winch turned on and our house collapsed. You see, dear, our house didn't just collapse on its own because of the snow. I had a hand in it. You see, I did to our house what you did to our marriage. Good luck in your search for a new home. As for me, I have almost reached my new home." At that moment, I reset it and called my neighbor. "Billy, you won't believe what happened. Your house just collapsed. I guess it couldn't handle all that snow, but there didn't seem to be much of it. At least not enough to cause that much damage. Look, I videotaped the whole thing, and luckily your wife is okay. She was trying to open the door when it all happened, and it was like bang, and it just fell in on itself." He was so excited. I told him to email me the video when he got a chance and that I would like to keep a copy of it. After talking with him, I turned off my phone and continued on my way to a new life. It's been almost 3 years now, and I've built a comfortable life for myself here in Colorado. I keep in touch with a few friends in Minnesota and keep an eye on what's going on. I didn't want to contact any of the family members directly because I was sure they would tell Lacey where I lived. It looks like Lacey got her wish and got pregnant with Mark's baby. For a while, she told everyone that the child was mine and that I couldn't remain a father, so I ran away like a coward. Even my mother believed her only because she wanted to have a grandson. I contacted a friend who in turn contacted my brother and told him to ask Lacey to do a DNA test on the baby with my brother. If I was the father, then there would be a match with my brother, and if it wasn't me, then there would be no coincidence. Like an idiot, she agreed. When the results came back, my mother kicked her out of the house, screaming at her to never show up at the door with her child. As for Mark, it looks like he was badly hurt by those 2 guys at the resort and spent over a week in the hospital before he was able to return home. When he finally reached the house, there were several other gentlemen, or should I say ex-husbands, waiting to add to his injuries. He has since left town for an unknown destination, but there are rumors that he can no longer have sex. I think his days as a player are over. Thanks for tuning in to this intense story of betrayal and revenge. What would you do if you found yourself in Billy's shoes? Do you think his actions were justified, or did he go too far? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more jaw-dropping stories. See you next time.